Okay. Okay, so I think I'm ready. So I think we're recording, and let's see. I've got two computers going here. One is so that I can kind of see everybody who's logged on, and let's see. Okay, we're going to start with chanting, and I'm not sure why I'm not in this. All right. Okay. This morning we are going to be doing the Nembutsu Wasan. And if you have a service book, it's on page 76. However, I know we don't have the Nembutsu Wasans in a file. So what I did yesterday is I photographed the pages and I put them up. So if you don't have your service book, then you can still follow along with me. Um, there are still some leader lines, but I'm thinking because you're all muted when we chant, I would suggest you just kind of go ahead and chant even the leader lines. I think it's good practice. The reason why I'm doing Nembutsu Wasan is because um, I just finished my Everyday Buddhist course on Wasans, and I'm sort of into the Wasan mood. And one of the things I did do for the course was to chant the Nembutsu Wasan, and I thought, well, we'll change up, doing the Sambutsuge and the Jusege and do the Nembutsu Wasan today. So we will do that. So first we'll begin with Gasho. Namo Amida Butsu, Namanda Butsu, Namanda Butsu, Namanda Butsu, Namanda Butsu. Itadaku our book. Open it up. And then we will begin with the bells. Namo Amidanbu. Namo Amidanbu. Namo Amidanbu. Namo Amidanbu. Namo Amidanbu. Namo Amidanbu. Na Midajou Butsu no Kono Kata wa Imani Jikou o Hetama Eri Hoshin no Kourin Kiwa mo naku Se no mōmyō o terasu nari. Namo Amidanbu. Namo Amidanbu. Namo Amidanbu. Namo Amidanbu. Namo 知恵の光明はかりなし無量の所相ことごとくこうけうかむらぬものはなし真実妙に奇妙せよナモアミダンブナモアミダンブナモアミダンブナモ阿弥陀仏南無阿弥陀仏南無阿弥陀仏南無阿弥陀仏南無阿弥陀仏南無阿弥陀仏南無阿弥陀仏下脱の降臨きわもなし高速かむるものはみな有無を離ると述べたも平等確に奇妙せよナモアミダンブナモアミダンブナモアミダンブナモアミダンブナ幸運無下女国一切の右下に触りなし光沢かむらぬものぞなき何時義を奇妙せよナモアミダンブナモアミダンブナモアミダンブナモアミダンブナモアミダンブナモア Sorry, why is this not going? Oh dear. Sorry. Oh dear. Okay. Koen no buto nazuketari sanzu no kokuan hiraku nari Daiogu o kimyo seyo Tanishikudoku Yodo sei isai Dohotsubo daishin Ojo anda Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu. Okay. When I put it on this mode, can you guys see me? I know gallery works, but because I know that when I see things, you see differently. All right, in this mode, can someone tell me whether I'm in the little thumbnail or not? Can someone?
Hard to hear you. Hard to hear you.
Hard to hear me?
Yes.
Okay, let me. Okay, I've got this up all the way. Okay. Is it still hard? Can you see me? Is the
Yes.
question.
Yeah.
Okay.
I can see you on the side.
On the side. Okay.
On the side. Okay.
Perfect. Thank you, Mary.
You're welcome.
Okay. All right. I will try to talk louder. Today, I'm going to talk about Naijin secrets. And the reason why is I have to thank the Junior YBA. They asked me, they're doing a conference in September over the Labor Day weekend. And one of the advisors asked if I would teach some of the officers how to make obutpan, which is the rice offering. And because we currently have not been doing obutpan at OCBC. And the reason why, several reasons, but one of the main reasons was that we are concerned about the waste of the rice that was being used for obutpan, because typically that rice isn't used afterwards. And we thought that maybe that wasn't, I guess that whole idea of mottainai, things not wasting. And anyway, so the junior YB said, well, could we have obupan, the rice offering, for a conference? And they asked if I would give them a lesson on how to make it. And then it started me thinking about sort of the offerings in general that we have on the Naijin. You know, there are many, many aspects to the Naijin that, you know, we basically don't think about, that we don't maybe even know what they mean. And so I thought today would be a perfect time to have a lesson on the Naijin offerings. You know, there are many, many things on the Naijin, but today I thought I would just focus on the offerings that we have up on the Naijin. And I'm using, if you can see this book, it's called Traditions of Jodo Shinshu Honganji Ha. It was written by Reverend Masao Kodani, who was the minister at Senchin Temple for like 40 years, and by Russell Hamada, Reverend Russell Hamada, who has since passed. But this is a book that is a gold mine of information about kind of Buddhist, Shin Buddhist ritual, and really gives us a sense of the meaning for all the things that we do. And so I thought today I would focus on one aspect of the rituals and of the Naijin and give you kind of a tutorial. And for me, it was very instructive to do this as well. We had to learn a lot of parts of the Naijin when I went to Tokudo and Kyoshi training. We got tested on different parts, but of course, all of that's out of my head now. So this was a really good review of those things. So maybe we don't, many of you aren't aware of the many ways that we do have offerings on the Naijin. And what I would start with first, though, is kind of a tutorial on what we call the Gohonzon, which is the central object of reverence. I don't say worship because we don't worship in Shin Buddhism, but we do have an object of reverence. And I wanted to read a little bit of what Reverends Kodani and Hamada said about the Gohonzon. So the honorific principal object of reverence, the central altar enshrines the Gohonzon, or central principal object of reverence. In Jodo Shinshu, it is Amida Buddha, which may take one of three forms: a standing statue of wood, a picture scroll, or a scroll with the characters Namo Amida Butsu written on it. Renyo Shonin, who is our 8th abbot, the person that is called the restorer of Jodo Shinshu, states that a painted picture of Amida Buddha is preferable to a statue, that the written characters Namo Amida Butsu is preferable to the painted picture. And the reason why he said that is because it's a recognition of the tendency of all of us to look upon Amida Buddha as a concrete thing of definite form and physical attributes, and to rely upon it as one would an anthropomorphic God. So there can be some conflation, particularly coming from if you came from a Judeo-Christian background, you know, you have this idea of God. And having a statue of Amida is, you know, could be kind of conflated and confused with that idea. The 6-character scroll is thus preferred by Renyo over that of the statue or picture because it is a little bit more removed from something concrete and anthropomorphic. But as it turns out, I think as humans, we like our human-like figures. And the Amida statue is the most common Gohonzon that's represented. So even at OCBC, we have a beautiful gold statue as our Gohonzon. The statue is always standing. So if you see a Buddha that's seated or sitting in a meditation pose, that is not a Jodo Shinshu or Shin Buddha statue. And it's usually made of wood and often gilded in gold leaf. The statue leans slightly forward, representing the dynamic aspect of wisdom and compassion. And then if you look at the hand mudra or hand gesture, it is in the gesture of tranquility and protection, signifying the entry of Amida Buddha into the realm of sentient beings for the purpose of teaching and affecting their enlightenment. The thumb and index fingers are touching in both hand positions, and they're joined to form the circle or wheel of perfection. The Dharma of the Buddha, perfect and eternal, having neither beginning nor end. The right hand is raised to shoulder level with palm facing outward, symbolizing wisdom, the attainment of perfect enlightenment, the nirvana world, or in Shin Buddhism we call that attaining Shinjin. The left hand is held with the palm facing outward, symbolizing compassion, the world of samsara, and the turning of all sentient beings into the truth of the Dharma. The raised hand also represents light, and the other hand represents Amida being the Buddha of infinite light and life. So that hand gesture has a lot of significance. Again, it represents both wisdom and compassion. Now, let's look at his face. So between and slightly above the eye is a spot called the Byakugo, originally said to be a tuft of white hair which curled to the right and was one of the 32 physical attributes or marks of the Buddha that is talked about in some of the sutras. The Byakugo is said to emit rays of light and is symbolic of the third or spiritual eye. And then on the very top, the top knot is called the Nikkei, or it's a protuberance on the top of the head is another of the 32 physical attributes of the Buddha, and it is the bump of spiritual wisdom. Okay, next I want to look at behind the Amida statue. So, and on top, or what he's standing on. The statue stands upon a throne or dais in the shape of a lotus blossom. And of course, we know how symbolic that is. And it grows, as we know, in muddy waters, but rises above the water to bloom, pure, beautiful, and unaffected by the defilement which surrounds it. And so this is an interesting fact. Unlike other plants, the lotus flower at full bloom already has fully developed seeds at its base. That is to say, the flower and the seed develop simultaneously. This is related to the Dharma and enlightenment, which arise simultaneously in the Pure Land tradition. The lotus flower is associated with sentient beings, and the offering of lotus flowers to the Buddha is symbolic of abandoning one's imagined nature and returning to one's true nature. Okay, now let's look behind the Amida statue. And attached to the back is okay, if you see on the right side, we have this light. It's like a halo, which actually was used or adopted by Western religions, but I think it originally started with Buddhism. And then behind it is something called a kohai. And the kohai is in the shape of a boat standing on end. It is carved with intricate tracery and gold leaf. A lotus flower motif is carved just behind the head of the statue. So, and you see the one with the kind of the boat all the way behind the statue. The second and more common form of the kohai is a half boat shaped background topped by 48 spokes radiating from a circle behind the head of the statue. The spokes represent rays of light, and the number 48 is the 48 vows made by the Bodhisattva Dharmakara, who perfected them to become Amida Buddha. And of course, that's in the largest sutra. So this represents a lot of lessons that we already know from the larger sutra, the 48 vows, and that's a really important aspect. Okay, so let's get to some of the offerings. So if you've never noticed on the Naijin, there are two sets of tables. There's right in front of the statue of the Buddha, there's a small table called the upper table. And on it is a configuration. Let me get to my page. Which is a formation of 4 items. So the upper table is called the uakujo, and it's a small gilded table immediately in front of the Gohonzon. And the arrangement set is called the shigu soku, shi meaning 4. So 4 arrangements. So we have on it, first of all, in the middle is a candle, and there's no candle on this candle in the center, and it's called the roso kutate, so not an easy word to remember. And then there is in front of that something called a koro. Actually, okay, I guess I miswrote that. It's called a firehouse. Akasha is a double-tiered incense burner of dark metal with a lid. It is placed immediately in front of the candlestick. So actually I miswrote that. Koro is an incense burner, but it's not this incense burner. And anyway, there's an incense burner in front of the candle. And then on either side is something called a kebyo. And it's a bulb-shaped vase of dark metal. And although it's called a flower vase, it really isn't. It's a vessel used for the offering of water, which I found really interesting, the sustainer of all life. And because you can't really see water, even the water is filled in the kebyo. So what is put into this container is greenery. And oftentimes it's, just a branch with leaves, and it's placed in there to represent the flowing water, because only flowing water remains pure and is the symbol of the Dharma, ever flowing, ever pure. So this 4 items arrangement is usually put on the wajoku, which is the upper table. Okay, I'm going to show you an example of that. So here, this is from IBS. This is their Naijin. Very, very simple, very elegant. But here we have the candle, we have the kasha in front of it, the incense burner, and then on both sides are the kebyo with the green leaves. Just one single branch of green leaf on either side of it. So one of the other things that are also often put on this table or near this table are fruit and rice offerings. So the bupang ki, that is the rice holder, and it usually sits on a little stand like the one below it. And usually the rice is mounded, just sometimes like a dome. But oftentimes, the rice will be shaped into a lotus bud, so it kind of goes up and looks kind of like a teardrop. And so those 2 configurations are often used. technically, the bupan should be on either side of the candle, and two bupan are usually placed there on the joku, the upper table. But oftentimes, what happens in a lot of temples is that they'll just do one obupan offering, and then this whole setup is put up in front of the Gohonzon, just above the table, right in front of the Buddha statue or the scroll or either scroll. On either side of the altar, and often not on this table, are fruit offerings or fruit or any other kind of offering, and they can be used either in the kesoku or the danmori. And I had a really hard time finding a danmori because I looked all over the internet. Actually, all of these items, I had to search all over the internet to try to find representative examples. It would have been easier if I was at OCBC and I could walk you through the Naijin to show you each of those aspects, and maybe that would be something we could do at some point. But anyway, these are examples that I found on the internet, and this is the only example I could find using the danmori, and this comes from Vista Buddhist Temple. Again, a very simple but elegant Naijin configuration. You can see there's the flowers, the candles. You have the, okay, no, I won't talk about that yet because that's next. But in the back, you see the danmori, and normally we would put fruit or vegetables, or in the case of funerals, we put manju or sweets or some kind of pastry on those 4 tiers on either side of the Gohonzon. So those are very nice. Let me see what I have about that. Okay, danmori, tier stacking. This is a simple stand of 4 circular tiers lacquered black and held in place by 3 wooden dowels, which are gold leafed. The danmori is used when 2 or more varieties of fruit, vegetables, mochi, manju are offered. These food offerings are either placed on the Maidoku, which is the front larger table, or on the shimidan of altars, or so up on the altar somewhere. And the kesoku, I don't know if they have anything written about that. Okay, so I'm going to now talk about the Maidoku, which is the front table. The ones that you'll see from OCBC and some of the other temples that I will be showing are it's a beautiful table that is in front of the uajoku, and it's a much larger table. And these are the items that do go on it. You will have a large vase, the kahin, on the left side. Again, you will have a candle on the right side. And then in the middle, you will have, again, another incense burner on a stand. And then in front of that will be another incense burner with the ceramic incense burner. So you have kind of 2 incense burners in a row. There's one, and these are both in the middle. So they will be the brass one. This is actually silver, but in general we use a dark metal, but I couldn't find one. And what I was also trying to find was a 3-footed incense burner, because in Jodo Shinshu we use a 3-footed incense burner, and we always have to have the front foot pointing forward when we set it up. So that's how it's configured. Anyway, this silver one should be dark metal, but the green celadon one is placed in front of that. And something that maybe you did or didn't know, the ceramic incense burner, the green one, we never put powder in it. It is, we just put in incense sticks, and that is our offering, is to put in the incense stick. So I'm giving you some examples, and these are a little bit harder to see, but because there's so many ornate things. But this is from the Buddhist Temple of San Diego. You see on the wajoku in the back, there's the candle with the incense burner in front of it, and then in the kebyo is the green leaves that are there, and then the Maidoku, which is this beautiful table in front. Oh, I guess no, that I guess you can't see that. This is what the altar is standing on, is the shumidan, and that's a pedestal for the altar to be sitting on. Okay, so you in front of that is the Maidoku, which you actually can't see, but on it is the arrangement that I described, with the flowers on the left, the candle on the right, the brass incense burner on a stand, and then with the green incense burner in front of that. There's another more formal configuration that is used for special services, where we use 2 candles and 2 flower arrangements, in which case everything is symmetrical. You'll have the flowers on the outside, then the candles next to it, and then you would have the incense burner. So that would be the 5-item configuration, which happens for special services. When those, I would think that, the monthly special services, we would sometimes do that. 2 flower arrangements, 2 candles. Okay. Here again, this is the Naijin at IBS, pulled back a little way, so you see the Maidoku in front with the flowers and the configuration that I described. Oops. Okay. All right. So I think what I'll do is stop sharing. Stop sharing. And let's do gallery. Okay. So we have many ways that we do offerings, and I like to read exactly what some of those things represent. So that's, I'm learning as you are. So talking about the flower vase. The art of flower arrangement in Japan actually derived from this offering of flowers in a vase to the Buddha, which began among the Buddhists in China. In India, the custom was different. They would scatter flower petals or pile flowers on a table. Some interesting facts about flower arrangements. Traditionally, you do not use flowers with thorns or with disagreeable smells or bitter tastes. Poisonous plants are never used as well. So the colors, white flowers, or white tends to be associated with funerals and death in Asian culture. So you'll see that at funerals, all those arrangements will always be of white flowers. But white also represents purity in Western culture. So sometimes you'll see white flowers at weddings. So you just be aware that the 2 cultures really differ in the ways that they view white. So I think that's an interesting aspect. The candle represents wisdom, and both the flowers and candles represent the truth of impermanence. mean, right now we don't use real candles that burn down. So it kind of takes away from that message of impermanence, but the candle does represent truth, and maybe it's prophetic to use an electric light because that light continues, as does truth. And so from that standpoint, maybe it's all right for us to be using an electric light. But the flowers, we always use real flowers. And that represents the impermanence. The beauty of the flowers is for us to enjoy in a very fleeting moment. And so the flowers on one side, the candles on the other, and then you have the incense in between. And the incense is also kind of joining through the essence of the smoke that flows between the flowers and the candles. It's joining these two worlds of wisdom and compassion and impermanence and purity, and the fact that truth always lasts. So from that, it's very symbolic. And then the other thing that we should need to know too, from particularly in our Buddhist tradition, the Shin Buddhist tradition, is we don't do these offerings to gain merit, or that this is expected of us in order for us to attain awakening. We give these offerings as aspects of our gratitude for the teachings, for the gift of awakening that we receive. So in our Shin tradition, we recognize that we have basically no ability on our own to attain awakening, but that it is a gift from Amida. And Amida, it represents all the causes and conditions of the world, all of the people, the earth, the sun, all of the things that make my life possible are assumed or included in what we understand as Amida. And so our offerings are a way for us to express our gratitude for that and to appreciate the fact that we don't deserve all of the things that we've been given, but we have nonetheless been given them. So when we do Oshoko, when we do an incense offering, when we say Gasho, it's an expression of that recognition and showing our gratitude for all that we have received. So it's hard to sometimes appreciate that when we're going through really difficult times. But I appreciate that the fact that Buddhism really teaches us a way to understand that difficulties mostly come from within ourselves, and to really appreciate that everything that we need to deal with our life in a meaningful way is there for us. Now, there are always extreme examples, and people always say, what about, when you're facing cancer, or if you're taken hostage, or, there's terrible things going on in this world. And I recognize that some people are under incredible suffering situations. But even Viktor Frankl, who wrote in Man's Search for Meaning, who was in a concentration camp during World War II, was able to transcend his situation through finding meaning in his life, and some of the insights that he came to are the same kinds of things that we try to convey in our Buddhist practice. So life is always hard, and sometimes it's harder than others, but there's always a way that we can find to transcend a lot of what we are dealing with. So we have a few minutes. Are there any questions that people might have about what I've just shared with you, or any comments? Yes, Mary.
Yes, I thank you very much for sharing all the different Naijins. I didn't know they had so many different ways. Okay, to display. My question is, okay, the one about the offering. Can the offering also be for our ancestors who had passed away before us? Because I remember my mom, she would always put the name, the Buddhist name of her ancestor, the date, all in Japanese, okay? And she would put it on the Naijin. So I'm asking you, is that another way of giving offering? Personal offering. I guess that's what I mean. But
yeah, I think that if you include your ancestors within that idea of what encompasses the idea of Amida, that these were your ancestors, your forebears who gave you life, who made your life possible. Yes. It's sometimes hard to separate out this idea of ancestor worship that comes from China, because that's a very strong part of Chinese, and I'm watching Korean dramas, and I'm seeing they spend a lot of time doing these memorials for their deceased relatives that look to me like ancestor worship. I wouldn't say that what we do is ancestor worship. We might include them, or they are part of what we think of as what is Amida. Amida is this force beyond and power beyond ourselves that has made our life possible, that has given you all the things that you have and need to make your life. So in that regard, I don't see a problem with that, but try not to confuse it with this idea of ancestor worship, because that's not what we do.
thank
Reverend
you very much.
Crane, Reverend Crane, this is Pamela.
Hi, Pamela.
What is the significance of the food offering? Who are you nourishing there?
It's just an expression of gratitude. It's a mindfulness thing, I think, more than anything, that you're thinking of, again, the teachings, the things that you have received. I mean, I know people in many forms of Buddhism think of the Buddha, whether it be Amida or Shakyamuni Buddha, the historical Buddha, think of him or it as more of a kind of a God presence, and that you're offering food to that entity. That's not what we're doing. But it's sometimes hard to keep that separated or keep that in mind, that it is just an expression of gratitude. And it's not to a physical person, or, I think.
But gratitude that that we have food, or gratitude because it nourishes us, our bodies, or what's the gratitude for the food?
Well, you mean when we do like in the tadakimasu, like before eating, or
No, the rice and the fruit. What is that? Why is that a symbol of gratitude?
Those are precious things to us. The fruit, beautiful fruit, is just a recognition or appreciation. It's just a way to say thank you. And we use rice because, if we were in Italy, it would be a piece of bread or a loaf of bread, because that is the source of nutrition and life for people. In Asia, rice is the chief food staple. And so doing a rice offering represents this appreciation for having the teachings. But it's not like we're trying to nourish any, invisible entities out in the, nether field. I mean, it's just an expression of saying thank you. I think that's all. And food is something that is essential for our life. So I think from that standpoint, that's what that represents. It's something that's precious to us. And that's what, flowers, we're giving things that are impermanent, but they're also precious.
Thank you.
I don't know if that answered your question or not.
Yes, thank you. Yes.
Marcia, you had a question or a comment?
Me?
Yeah.
I wasn't going to say anything, but I guess you're reading my mind.
No,
Yeah,
but-
these are the same questions. Everyone's asking the same question. I was also wondering about, it's so curious that there's not a being, and yet we're making an offering. I think in our human brains, we think of, so like if I write somebody sends me something in email and I reply and I say in Gasho, because I'm thinking, thank you, and I'm bow to you. But that's in my mind, I have a human on who's receiving that email.
Yeah.
And so this is interesting because ideally we are not thinking of the historical, we're thinking of the Amida Buddha in a different way, a way that's beyond human. And what's interesting though is that we're using a very human way of and I'm also thinking about rice, like historically in Japan. I mean, some of the old movies I've seen where like when people were very, very poor, like rice was like a big deal if you had rice. So it was a very like, historically, it could be a very valuable thing to people who were like farmers and poor. And so it's interesting that we're using something that's valuable, human value,
Yes.
to offer gratitude to something not human at all. So it's just like a human thing to do.
Yeah, it's more for us, I think, because it's not servicing or doing any benefit to the universe, right? It's really, we're doing this to make ourselves feel better, that we're expressing, it's a vehicle for us to express our gratitude. And so from that standpoint, it's really something that's for us to do, to make us.
Yeah. It reminds me of like practicing gasho or going to service. Like it's the act of doing it to practice
And
gratitude.
in the act of doing it, like preparing a flower arrangement or preparing a bukpan or giving a cookie on a osunai plate, it makes you focus in that moment on that gratitude and why you're doing it. So it really is an awareness practice, I think, more than anything else. And I think as humans, we need ways to do that. And I really value the rituals that we do because they do help us to be more mindful and pay attention to that. So I think that there's real value in that, and chanting and all the things that we do. They just keep us very connected to and aware of the teachings. So.
And I just wanted to thank you because it's really nice to understand at least those two tables, because from where we sit, it's beautiful, but it's a lot to take in. And now I can see it. I can see those pieces. And from a previous talk, I know the scrolls. And so thank you so much for helping.
Yeah, there's a lot of elements, all the lanterns, they have special meaning, and even our robes, this book is really great. I don't even know if it's available still. I don't know if you can see this. Anyway, it's a purple book called Traditions of Jodo Shinshu Honganji Ha, and it's probably quite old, but yeah, you don't really appreciate all the symbolism that's entailed in a lot of what we do in our services. So yeah, for me, it's very helpful to give it a little bit more meaning. It's sort of like studying the chants, going through and actually reading them. And even like the Nembutsu wasans that we did, if you actually, there's 6 wasans that are written in the Nembutsu wasans. And if you go through the translations and actually spend time reading the translations, I think you get a deeper meaning and understanding. So that's the value of study classes and going deeper into the teachings and the sutras, because you, beyond just the ritual of the chanting, you get to understand it at a deeper level. And you don't do this on your own, right? It's hard to do this on your own. So it helps to have a class, an opportunity like today, where it's presented to you and for you. Any other questions? Well, it's 11, oh no, 10:58, 3 seconds left. All right. Oh, we've got 1 more minute. So in 1 minute, oh, before we go, I do have one more thing I need to share with you. So let me do this. Okay, share. All right, so I wanted to just let you know that this is the rest of the summer schedule. Next week, Reverend John will be doing his adult study class. Then after that, Minister's Assistant Janice Hirohama, then Jim Pollard, and then Teresa Shimagawa. She's also an MA, but she's not certified yet. She's one of our newer MAs. But if any of you have been reading any of the Everyday Buddhist blogs, or she's even been featured in the Wheel of Dharma, Teresa's a very, very gifted writer, and she has a lot of very interesting things to say. And of course, Janice and Jim Pollard are amazing teachers. Jim and I started, well, I think, yeah, all three of us started ministerial assistantship together. And I consider the two of them as Dharma teachers. We've really learned the Dharma together. And this idea in Shinshu is Dobo Ondogyo, fellow travelers together. I feel like I have been traveling with all of you during this set part of my life, learning about the Dharma. And doing a class like today, I had to really study this book and kind of get it, so I knew what to tell you. And I still don't know all of it very well, but it was a wonderful opportunity to learn something. So that's, for me, that has been the value of being a minister's and minister's assistant, is that these opportunities to teach really make me have to learn something at a deeper level than I would just normally do on my own. So thank you. All right, we'll end with Gasho. If there's no other questions, and hopefully I'll see you all next Sunday listening to Reverend John. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namanda Butsu. Namanda Butsu. Namanda Butsu. Have a good rest of your day, and we'll see you in a week. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.